been a financial planner for years. I've won awards, I've written books, and I thought as long as I gave good quality information, people would make the best decision, the most logical decisions. But I was wrong. I reached out to a financial therapist, Rahkim, the author of Overcoming Financial Trauma, to discuss some of these things. How do people make some of the wrong financial decisions, even though they have the best information? All of the information from places like YouTube, from financial planners, and everywhere in between. What are the things that separate good decisions from bad decisions at times? And sat down with him to understand what is the disconnect at times. And honestly, it changed the way that I look at money, because there's something called vicarious financial trauma, something that happens not just to you, but to someone who is in your family. And that is something that can be passed down. But I'll let him describe exactly what it is, and I'll tell you how it's impacted me and even people in my own family.
Blend of the experience that people around them have had that influence how they approach money, and even the experiences of people that are no longer here have had, and how that shows up, through a generational lens. And so we talk about these ideas of generational curses and generational traumas. And I think that those are also buzz phrases that are kind of tossed around, but we don't really dig into, well, what allows for these things to persist across generations.
Yeah.
So to your point, that vicarious piece of trauma, I think it flies under the radar in terms of being recognized, but I think it's probably the most prolific form of financial trauma, right? Because our financial socialization largely depends on, or rather largely influenced by what it is that we see others engaging with money experience.
Now, with that context, my grandfather was born in 1929, right as the Great Depression was getting started. Someone born in that era and came of age during the Civil Rights Movement, he was not someone who was very trustworthy of, certain people here in the United States. He wasn't super trustworthy of banks because, again, he was born in an era before the FDIC was created, and banks weren't what they are today. The stock market was not what I know the stock market to be. And that is something that I had to overcome, because what he knew of money, what he knew of the financial system, is not the same financial system that I grew up knowing. But his system, his view of the world, was something that was initially passed on to me. He grew up in a world that was financially segregated, that was honestly socially segregated, and that was a trauma that was passed on. He was chased out of rural Louisiana to where I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is a completely different thing, which again I've written a book about, which was Black Wall Street, and that has its own history of both physical trauma and financial trauma as well. And there are several other books about how these things impact people who look like me and how that passes on into how we deal with money. But aside from that piece of it, it can also impact how you invest, and that is outside of race as well. There are so many people who decide, hey, I saw what happened during the meme stock era, or my parents invested in something and they got burned by the stock market, therefore I am not going to invest in the stock market. It happens outside of a racial context as well. For example, people who worked in the Rust Belt. If you grew up and your parents had went through that era and their jobs were shipped overseas, you may now see the world in a completely different context. But perhaps the biggest one is how people in the millennial generation and also Gen Z see where our parents were and what they had, especially if they came of age and bought houses in the 1980s and the 90s. We are comparing ourselves to where they were, and a lot of us feel behind. If you grew up in an era where you saw many of your friends online and see what they have, you are in perhaps a comparison generation and you may feel like you are behind. Well, financial trauma can explain exactly what is happening and how you are dealing with these situations right now.
Especially in today's world, that we look around, even with adults, comparing their lives and their lifestyles financially to other people online that they've never met through social media. This phenomenon, if you will, is massively amplified in young people and older adults alike.
All this explains exactly the conversations that I have with people all across the country over the last year and some change now where they say, hey, Kevin, I feel behind. I need to feel like I need a financial plan. I need to get back on track. I feel like everybody has left me in some capacity. When in reality, they're usually either right on par with the average or they're usually ahead. But the reason they feel that way is because they're comparing themselves to where their parents were in a completely different economy. This is why I'm writing another book called Your Parents Were Wrong About Money, to describe and really show you what the differences were between our parents' generation and where we are today. And all this feeds us back into social media, but in a different type of context, because that shifts the window. It has, one, exposed us to more comparison than what we perhaps needed to know. Like, we should all know less about each other. But the biggest thing is this: investing should be boring. It used to be boring, but now it has turned into content. And you should know as much as you do about day trading. There are more people selling day trading courses than they do themselves actually making money from day trading. But the truth is, day trading, swing trading, all that stuff, it doesn't really work in practice at the rate that people claim that it does. Again, I see what millionaires do and how they make their money. It ain't doing that, but those are the things that get the clicks and get the views, and that is what gets disseminated, and that is what gets the most traffic, which leads people to do things they probably shouldn't. We've already done videos and I've shared data around how especially young men are trading more crypto than what they're putting inside of their IRAs, which does not build long-term wealth, especially what we've seen this year and what we have from long-term data. That is a problem, right? Because you get more ads for crypto, you get more ads for meme coins, and we've seen a lot more of the entertainment factor of it, again, especially since the pandemic, than the old boring index funds, because that doesn't garner attention on social media in the exact same way. But guess what? This also feeds into somewhat of a trauma response, and here's why.
Somebody comes to you, let's call them Gen Z. They heard about Robinhood for the first time, and they're like, hey, I got Robinhood, I got, a couple of dollars, what should I invest in? And Gen Z, I think, really interesting, but certainly not specific to, just this group. But Gen Z is the generation that's growing up on social media, right? Social media is already established. Like, all they know is tablets and social media. And as a result, all they know is the strategies that a lot of these platforms employ. So when we talk about Robinhood, we have to talk about Robinhood in the same vein that we talk about FanDuel, which is the sports betting app, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to look at the engineered dopamine responses and the gamification and, all of the hype in these, they're not called chat rooms anymore, but chat rooms through Telegram and Discord and what have you, where people are investing not because they want to be responsible stewards of their financial future, but because it's cool, because it serves as a means to an end, because people, influencers are showcasing their wealth, right, through lifestyle marketing that says, you don't have this, but you could if you do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it comes down to people opting into investing as a means to survive, right? But in their attempt to survive, they may then decide to not cover the basics or the foundational things that they need to actually survive. And then they enter the cycle of, well, I got to put my money in, I got to pull my money out, I got to pull my money out at the right time. So now investing is gambling.
Right.
And then that creates a trauma, right? That creates a fracture where it's like, well, I don't want to invest anymore because I lost all my money, in the same way that I would if I went to the casino and put it all on red.
And yes, this is something that we have discussed before, because there have been people who have said, hey, your Roth IRA is the exact same thing as a savings account. It is not. Again, we have covered this before, and those people assume that the stock market always goes up and you can put money in, take money out, and just exchange things all the time just to make money, just to catch up. And they feel the pressure. They feel the pressure to catch up to what? Catch up to where their parents were, catch up to what they see on Instagram without knowing the numbers behind it. And again, that piece of it is key, right? That psychological pressure of, I'm on the hamster wheel, I need to do what everybody else is doing. But in the background, we have the data, and I'll put it on the screen, but we have the data of the people who are buying houses now. How many of those people got money from their parents to help them? They don't always show you those things on Instagram, or how many people stayed at home for 2 years or 3 years to help save up to then go buy their first home. All you see is the picture with the giant key, hey, I bought my first home. Then you feel behind. Then you feel like, hey, I need to start trading to make extra money. Hey, I need to go hustle and make extra money. I need to do all of these things. And that could be some form of a trauma response. Or you're working 2 jobs or a side hustle because you saw what your parents had to go through and how they were treated. And that could be a form of a financial trauma response. But with all of these things, what does that mean now?
There are those who believe that, yes, something happens to everybody and we get over it. And the truth of the matter is that it's the process of getting over it that, that dictates what comes next. Our getting over it may be, okay, like you said, I'm going to enter a protective state where I'm not going to invest in the stock market because I want to prevent myself from experiencing the impact of loss. So I'll go this way. And then there are protective responses that look like, well, I'm going to double down on this because some call it fallacy, right? Like I've done it for so long, I don't know anything else.
No, I thank Rahkim for helping me to understand what financial trauma was. It was new when I found out about it just a few years ago. He does have a book, Overcoming Financial Trauma, that I'm still working through. I'm not yet an expert on it, but this is the first book that I am reading on it. I am enjoying the topic of financial trauma, and I'm going to continue to educate myself on it because it is a lot more impactful than I ever thought possible. What my grandparents went through, what my parents went through, impacted me, not just as a financial planner, but as a person. How I handle my money was a lot more impactful in the person that I became, more than I ever thought possible. It's not something that has to hold you back. It doesn't mean that it's something that's gonna, hold you down for the rest of your life, but it is worth sitting down, understanding all the things that you could be working through so that you can grow financially and be in the places that you want to be and reach the goals that you want to reach. I want to thank Rahkim for helping me to understand more about financial trauma. You can get his book, Overcoming Financial Trauma. It is in every place that books are sold. I am in the last 2 chapters of the book and I'm absolutely enjoying it. Also, leave a review. Also, there is a full interview. It is more than an hour long inside of our members only, and you are absolutely going to enjoy that. I'll leave a link for his book here. I'm going to keep reading on this topic, and you will hear me refer to this book and financial trauma a bit more. And I think it is something worth sitting down and understanding why we make some of the decisions that we do beyond just the math. You want to learn more about money and everything in between, you want to check out these videos right here.